is what is inheritance in C sharp. So let's say start the video by saying what is the literal meaning of inheritance. Inheritance means heritage. For example, as we all have parents, our parents' property, for example, like plots, house, car, or farm, everything is gonna pass to us. Okay, as a children, as per law, it is going to pass to us. So that process is called inheritance. So let's see this with the real life example. Okay, for example, we have a class like public class grandfather. Okay, we all have grandfather. So grandfather have properties like assets like string, public string, house of grandfather. Okay, house, okay, one house. Grandparent have one house. He also have he also have lots of grandfather, two plots. He have a public string farm grandfather. 10-acre farm. Okay, 10-acre farm. Grandfather have 10-acre farm, and grandfather have job string job of grandfather as he was like engineer. Okay, so these are the properties or these things my grandfather have. Okay, so my father public, let's declare another class as my father. And okay, so what my grandfather have will going to pass to my father. As per law, my father will get grandfather's properties. Okay, so let's inherit grandfather. So we are inheriting means what is going to happen. Father is going to get grandfather's properties, and this is called inheritance. Okay, so grandfather's properties like this house of grandfather, plots of grandfather, farm of grandfather is going to pass to my father as per law. That is called inheritance. Okay, so how to declare inheritance or how to derive from this class? Just put a colon and that class name. This is called inheritance. Okay, so if we and my father have also some properties like string. My father have also some assets, house of father, one house. Okay, public string and plots of father, two public and vehicles or car of father is model Maruti Suzuki. Okay, or Tata EV. My father have uh, job of father. Okay, he's something like doctor. Okay, so my grandfather have these assets or properties like house of grandfather, lots of father, farm of grandfather, job of grandfather, and my father have properties like house of father, plots of father, car of father, job of father. Okay, so let's declare a method to understand what is actually inheritance in real life. Public void what father inherits is let's make an okay. So to access this grandfather's properties to my father, what we are going to do, we are going to declare or create an instance of grandfather's class. Okay, so let's create an instance. How to create an instance? Just take class name grandfather, and take any variable obj, or let's say bff, and new grandfather. Okay, so my father is going to inherit these properties as per law. So what can my father access or inherit? Okay, so for example, my father can inherit house of grandfather. Okay, here house of grandfather, farm of grandfather. Okay, BFF dot. Okay, house of grandfather, farm of grandfather, and plot of grandfather. Okay, he can inherit these many things. Okay, so my grandfather have job, engineer, but the job my grandfather have is on his qualification skills, and if my father doesn't have that skills, so he cannot inherit that my father's job, my grandfather's job. Okay, my father cannot inherit uh, my grandfather's job because it is based on his skills, means my grandfather's skill, his talent, okay, his qualifications. Okay, so we cannot access private members of any other class by inheritance. Okay, we cannot inherit private members. That's what inherit by inheritance we can access public members, but we cannot access private members. Okay, so we can access means inherits house of my grandfather, also dot farm of grandfather, plot of grandfather, but we cannot access or inherit his. Okay, my father cannot inherit his job because it is on the base of my grandfather's qualification, his skills and talent. Okay, same as if I am going to inherit from my father public class me. Okay, if I am going to inherit from my father, so let's say we inherit, okay, my from my father. So my father, we inherited from my father. So we can get my father's house. So I can get my father house, his plots, car of my father. But here is a private member. I cannot get his job because it is based on his qualification, his talent, his education. So that's what private members, we cannot access inherit private members of any class. So in C sharp, we cannot inherit from multiple classes. Okay, if we try to directly inherit, means at a time we cannot inherit from two classes or more than one class. Okay, if we try to inherit grandfather class and my father class in me class. Okay, so compiler will give us here saying class me cannot have multiple base classes, my father and grandfather. So okay, so in practical life we cannot directly inherit from grandfather, we can only inherit from my father. So what happens is I cannot directly inherit from my grandfather, my grandfather properties. Okay, if I have to inherit my grandfather property according to law, this property my father will get, and after that I will get this my grandfather property. So if I inherit from my grandfather, if I inherit from my father, automatically I am going to get inherited my grandfather's properties. Yes or no? Absolutely, because law says grandfather's property pass on to father, and father's property pass on to his child's. Okay, so I am my father's child, I am going to get my father's property, and my father get his father's properties. Okay, so but again, my father have a job. Okay, so I cannot get my father's job because it is based on his qualifications, his education, his talent and skills. Also my father cannot get my grandfather's job because again it is based on his qualification, means my grandfather's qualification, his education, his skills and talent. So if I, okay, so if I declared a method like public void what I inherits. Okay, what I inherits public cw public. Okay, and to inherit my father from my father, let's create an instance good fellow new my father. Okay, so what is I'm going to get, I'm going to inherit Hmm. Check. House of my father. Okay. Car of my father. Car of father. And again, what are the properties? Plot of father. Okay. Plots of father. Plot of father. Okay. So check. I am getting inherited these properties, my father plots and my grandfather plot. Okay, automatically I am getting inherited because I inherited my father, and my father I gets inherited properties of my father, and my father inherits from my grandfather. So that's why we are getting house of my father, house of my grandfather, car of my father, farm of grandfather. Okay, these are properties we can inherit from. So in C sharp we cannot directly inherit two class from two classes. What we can do, we can inherit that class in another class, and that another class we can inherit in other class. Let's print some values. Okay, check. I can inherit my grandfather properties. Okay, plot of my grandfather. Let's check. This is my father inherits uh, house from grandfather, and I'm going to get some. I'm also can inherit from my grandfather. Me getting inherited from grandfather is plots and all other public properties. I cannot inherit private members, and we can only inherit public members of any class. So that is what is happening here. If we create instances from instances of my father, good father, and call method good father dot, what is this method, what inherits. Okay, if I call method of my father, what my father inherits, let's check. Okay, my father inherits house from grandfather, one house. Okay, so this one, house of grandfather, one house. And if I also create an instance of me class, okay, I is equal to new me. So I dot what I inherits from, what I inherits, I got what in I inherits. Okay, so what is I'm inheriting, I'm inheriting my grandfather plots. Okay, let's run the project. Okay, me getting inherited from grandfather two plots. Okay, this is the inheritance, this is how inheritance works in C sharp. So what are the things? Also, if we declare constructor of any other class which is getting inherited, private grandfather. Okay, now check. Okay, if we declared the constructor of my grandfather private, then what happens? This class my father inheriting from grandfather is invalid, it gives errors. Okay, grandfather dot grandfather constructor is inaccessible due to its protection level. So what is happening? Constructor's work is to initialize these values, these variables with values. So without declaring or without the constructor, we cannot initialize, or memory to these variables cannot allocated. So if we declare private constructor, so indirectly what happens? For example, directly happens, what happens is that we cannot initialize these variables or these variables with values, and memory is not getting allocated to these variables. So that's why while inheritance, while inheriting something, the constructor of base class should be public. Now check, the error is gone. The constructor should be public. Second thing is, I cannot, or my father cannot inherit from my, from me, from his child. My father cannot inherit from his, means inherit is a wrong word. Okay, now I am inheriting from my father, but and what is our relationship? Parent child. Okay, so parent class cannot inherit child class methods or members. Okay, for example, my grandfather class is the base class. Okay, and this my father class is the child class of direct child class of a grandfather class. So my grandfather class cannot inherit from my father class. For example, if I try to inherit or properties of my grandfather from if I try to inherit or access these properties of child class of my grandfather, it is not possible in inheritance. And if we declare any, okay, and if we declare grandfather, okay, so this is the base class. Okay, and we declare it the class variable. Okay, so this is the class variable, and we are, and if we make a reference of base class with the help of, okay, so we have make a reference of base class to the child class. Okay, so what happened in this case is, so the memory of the grandfather class or the grandfather variable is using memory of father class. But again, now I have declared reference to the child class with the help of base class. Now I try to, if I try to access the child class properties. What are the child class properties? House of father, lot, lot of father. I cannot access or inherit these properties of child class in the base class or by the base class. I cannot access this because in inheritance, in parent child relationship, we cannot access child class properties by the base class or parent class